shooting death of Tupac Shakur. The rapper's 1996 murder is still unsolved to this day. The day began as a normal day for Shakur. That night, he attended the Mike Tyson boxing match with Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. When Shakur was exiting, he encountered Orlando Anderson, who was affiliated with the Southside Crips, which was a gang from Compton, California. Shakur was involved with the Mob Piru Bloods, a street gang that battled with the Southside Crips. Right after the fight, Orlando Anderson saw Shakur and initiated the fight, but Shakur had bodyguards who beat him up, which is what might have flipped the switch as to what later happened in the story. History.com states that hours later, Shakur was riding as a passenger in a car driven by Death Row Records head Marion Suge Knight when a white Cadillac pulled up alongside them at a stoplight on Flamingo Road and opened fire. Shakur was rushed to the hospital where he died just 6 days later. Duane Davis, better known as Keefe D, went on a podcast to explain everything he knew about that fatal day nearly 30 years ago. Keefe D was Orlando Anderson's uncle, and he goes into depth on who was sitting where and where the gunshot came from. The picture was taken as a visual of what Keefe D said on his podcast, that he and Terrence Brown were sitting in the front of the white Cadillac, while DeAndre Smith and Orlando Anderson were in the back. And even though he is the last remaining alive, he refuses to name the shooter because of street code. Many people, as well as I, believe that Orlando Anderson did the dirty work in grabbing the gun and opening fire on Shakur. But why? Was it a personal grudge, or was it something deeper than that? A member and friend of Tupac and Suge named Trayvon Lane got his jewelry stolen by Orlando Anderson, and Lane informed Tupac and Suge. Shakur was anxious to fight after seeing Tyson. The East Coast vs. West Coast rivalry reached a pinnacle with Tupac Shakur from the West Coast with the label Death Row Records and Notorious B.I.G. with Bad Boy Entertainment. Even though they were rivals, Biggie and Tupac were friends, and Sean Combs, better known as Puff Daddy or Diddy, was insanely jealous of their relationship. A quote from a Netflix documentary discussing the lore of Diddy and how he felt toward Tupac and Biggie says, "For Sean, being a marketer, you're a manipulator. And there's envy for people who have success and fame with no manipulation." However, this friendship between Biggie and Tupac came to a sudden halt when on November 30th, 1994, Tupac Shakur was in the lobby of a Manhattan office building to record his third album when he was seriously shot and wounded by two armed men. The reason this has anything to do with their friendship is because Tupac lived from the shooting, and he blamed Sean Combs and Biggie for this attempted assassination. And this is the event that really sparked the East vs. West Coast rivalry, leading to many deaths and the end of Tupac and Biggie's life. Suge Knight would be my number one suspect, though there is no way he would risk his life in a car that was getting shot up and a fragmentation of a bullet actually hit his head. And the other possible victim could be Keefe D, who was arrested in 2023 for the murder of Tupac Shakur, only because he was related, not that he actually did it. I believe, like most people who have heard about the case, that Sean Combs, Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever you want to call him, was the mastermind behind the murder of Tupac. In a podcast with Keefe D, or Duane Davis, he said that he had a reason to go after Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight because Sean Diddy Combs had placed a $1 million bounty on the two men's heads. It doesn't take a genius to know that with Shakur and Knight gone, Diddy would grow more powerful in the music industry, with the Bad Boy Records dominating the Death Row Records. They would knock off his prodigy, Biggie's biggest rival. According to USA Today, two more accusations that Combs was involved had surfaced, and they are that he bragged about ordering the hit and that there was a chance that he had paid for the rented Cadillac used in the drive-by shooting. At the 1995 Source Awards, Suge Knight went up on stage and shot a hit at Diddy, saying,
"Any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row."
Later that same year, in September 1995, Big Jake, Suge Knight's friend, was shot to death outside a party in the East Coast in Atlanta, attended by both Suge Knight's crew and Sean Combs. This caused even more hatred between the two. Bad Boy co-founder Kirk Burroughs stated, "With Sean, sometimes you're humiliated. Sometimes you're made an example of. Sometimes violent things happen to you." He states in the documentary, "Through the years, a lot of bad things happen to good friends." I believe that Orlando Anderson is responsible for the killing of Tupac Shakur, but I think that Sean Combs is to blame for the murders of not just Tupac, but 6 months later in Los Angeles, his own prodigy, Notorious B.I.G.